Not only did she not know who I was, she was afraid of me.
It's there and then it's gone.
For every one person who has Alzheimer's disease, there are at least 3 or 4 people who are severely affected.
We left the office. It's as if someone's told you that you're gonna die.
We still can't find the good in yesterday. Small shining moments that refuse to fade. Sunday mornings, the sound of you humming low. Your hand in mine on roads we used to know.
Alzheimer's is a devastating diagnosis, truly life-altering, and one of the most difficult parts is the impact it has on the loved ones of the patient. Losing the person that you love the most in the world when they're still physically here on Earth. In this episode of The Pulse, you'll hear from people living inside that reality. A husband who's learning what it means to grieve while his wife is still here. A family facing an early-onset diagnosis and choosing hope, connection, and action. And a neurologist explaining what Alzheimer's is, what it is not, and why support for caregivers matters as much as medical care.
For us as a wedding gift.
Phil's story is like many people here in the desert. He and his wife dreamt of retirement and they finally made it to a peaceful, quiet life here in the desert. But as their story would go, retirement didn't look exactly as they had hoped.
We both worked for the same company. I was teaching a class up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and she was in the class. She was outgoing. She liked to laugh. She was pretty. By the time the class was over 3 weeks later, we were pretty involved, and she lived in the Bay Area and I lived in LA. We bought a lot of airline tickets. We paid gigantic phone bills. One night, we fell asleep on the phone.
How much was that bill?
Yeah, it was big. It was hundreds of dollars.
How did you propose to her?
I'm a little bit ashamed to say that we were in bed.
Oh! Oh my gosh. So tiny.
Yeah, she was tiny.
Oh. Do you remember what you thought when she came out in this?
Well, truth be known, you know, we drove to the wedding together.
Okay.
Well, I loved her. I do love her. She was my friend, you know. If somebody asks about what to look for in a spouse, look for your friend. Find your friend that, you know, that you also love. Even though we sort of started as lovers, we became really best friends.
So many nights I have stood in the moonlight, watching it fade into dawn, wanting her back with me, warm in the moonlight, knowing that moment was gone. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
How do you remember feeling, knowing that you were up there on that stage? How did that make you feel when you'd perform?
Kelly, sorry.
Take your time. No, don't worry.
Could I have some coffee?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Caffeine helps a bit.
Okay, yeah. Chris is an avid performer. He has truly an incredible voice, a musician through and through, and he looks back on a remarkable career getting to do what he loved.
Goodbye, my Coney Island baby. Farewell, my own true love, my honey, I'm gonna leave you. Never to see you, and I'm never gonna see you, baby. I'm gonna sail.
We put the quartet together and did a lot of gigs around the Coachella Valley. We did national anthem at Dodger Stadium. That one was kind of cool. I'm a Dodger fan.
Just going back to some of your performances at the McCallum Theater, it's a big deal to get to perform there. What do you remember feeling when you were on that stage?
Hey, we made it, and after all the rehearsal, opening night, I mean, it's really exciting. It's kind of in my blood, I guess.
When I'd never let her
She loved to bake cookies, and yeah, she was a great cook. Things started to change in 2012. Very subtle. You really had to be around her all the time to notice it. One big sign was she liked to drive, and so she did most of the driving when we were both in the car together. But she's not good with directions. I would give her directions, I couldn't communicate with her. Her brain was working different than my brain. So you'd tell her, turn right at the next signal, and she wouldn't do it. I was really concerned, but I couldn't get her to talk to the doctor. And finally in 2018, I brought it up. And the doctor talked to her a little bit about it and referred us to a neurologist.
Actually, patients a lot of times have what in medicine, in neurology, we call anosognosia. That means they do not have insight to what the problems they have. I always like to start with the patient to see what their insight is. And you ask them, can you tell me why your doctor wanted us to get together? And usually they just say, no, he just wanted us to get together. Sometimes they say, oh yeah, I have some memory problem. But then they present it as something that's not very important, that it really should not matter. And it's my spouse that's making a big deal out of this, or it's my child who's making a big deal out of this. Once I listen to them, then I say, do you mind if I talk to your spouse or the person who's with you?
And the neurologist tested her and said, you have, at least moderate dementia at this point.
So dementia, I always tell the patient, is a symptom. It's a clinical syndrome, and it can only be diagnosed by history. There's no test. Alzheimer is a disease.
When you diagnose somebody with Alzheimer's, what is actually chemically or otherwise happening in their brain that warrants that diagnosis?
So basically, Alzheimer is a disease that has to do with deposition of certain proteins like beta amyloid, that these are normally our brain makes them, but they become insoluble and they deposit, and then we call them plaques, and they cause dysfunction and they cause neuronal death. There is another protein called tau that's also very important and causes the cell death. And basically we are losing neurons, we are losing brain. This is a deadly disease, and we have to keep that in mind.
River in the rain.
When did you start feeling like you were losing some memory and having a hard time remembering things? When did that all start?
The big thing was I was slated to play the Phantom in the Phantom of the Opera, and I couldn't remember my lines. I was crushed when I realized that that's not gonna happen anymore, at least on stage. That was hard.
Phantom was something that he had really wanted to do for years, and he would listen to the music over and over and over and, rehearse and rehearse. And when it came time for the auditions, he said to me that he didn't audition. And I was a little upset. I was, I'd heard about this role for years. He said I could memorize the music. I knew the music, but I couldn't memorize the lines. I don't know how it hit me. It stuck out for me, but not enough for me to put the brakes on and say there's something going on. And that wasn't until a few years later when it was during COVID, I think. He started kind of isolating, detaching a little bit from conversations because we had all of our boys home. It was such a special time. We'd sit and we'd play games and we'd talk for hours and we'd, do all these things. And I would notice that Chris would sit off and observe. He started putting more on me, telling me, you're just better at that than I am. You do it. You're better at it than I am. You're quicker than I am. So he would always say these excuses to me to have me do whatever it was. It really became annoying. In hindsight, it makes me wonder how many people left marriages or ended up in a bad situation with a relationship because it was Alzheimer's and not behavior. It kind of shook me to my core when I started putting all of these things together over the course of a few years. And then when he kept bringing it up to me that he had this fog and he would be drinking coffee late into the day because it seemed to help him focus, to be able to finish what he needed to finish for the day. So then when he went to the primary care and she said, well, you're just getting older. There were a lot of things that just didn't add up. And so I told him, I'm not going to settle for you're just getting older.
Dementia is not part of aging. There is no such a thing as senile dementia. That was the word that was used, but not in 21st century. Aging does not mean you develop dementia. You may develop some neurocognitive slowing, but not to any extent that can cause dementia as we define it. So these things should not be taken that, oh, grandma is 85 and that's why she can't remember. No. And if a provider tells you that you have dementia, the next question be, what's the disease? Maybe they can do it the first time, maybe 6 months later, maybe a year later. But at some point, we should be able to tell the family why their loved one has dementia. Dementia is a symptom. It is not a diagnosis in and of itself.
He went to see the neurologist and he had a couple tests, cognitive tests and other things, and then told Chris that he should get his affairs in order and that he had Alzheimer's, and essentially that was that. We left the office and it was just, it's as if someone's told you that you're gonna die. And it was just this panic of thinking and feeling there's gotta be something. This can't be how it ends.
They started her on, several drugs.
Did you feel at that time any of the medication helped?
It's impossible to know if the medication helps because you don't know what it would be like without the medication. So the medication isn't going to cure anything. It just delays the progression. And I believe it did. Things were great for us, even though the disease was progressing until January of last year. So just about a year ago this time is when things really changed for Patty. The change was really difficult. Not only did she not know who I was, she wouldn't let me take care of her anymore. Whereas for maybe the year before, there were probably times when she didn't quite know who I was, but she let me take care of her. She let me bathe her. She let me do everything for her. That came to an end. And not only wouldn't she let me, she was afraid of me.
How did that make you feel?
Well, it was devastating. I'd show her pictures. Here's our wedding picture. No, that's not you. I would never marry you. When she looked at me, she saw somebody different.
This is one disease that we worry about the caretaker. We have to, because this is very stressful for the person who's taking care of the patient. We know the burden, the time that these people lose from being able to work and do other things comes to something like $350 billion per year, meaning that these people are basically working for nothing and they're losing money. So it's a very devastating disease. For every one person who has Alzheimer's disease, there are at least 3 or 4 people who are severely affected. This is very important that we do recognize the disease and educate the family. So when you have a pregnant woman, the obstetrician takes care of 2 people, the mother and the fetus. This is also just as important. This is one time, and these are not anything I say, these are by people who are expert in the field. They say you should also pay attention to the caretaker, to the spouse, to the child, whoever is taking care of this patient. Because if something happens to them, no one is going to take care of your patient. And that is so true. So you have to inquire about their health, and if needed, help them out. Write a prescription for whatever they need.
One of the things that really was somewhat of a roadblock was his age. At the time that we were starting down this path, it was, I think, just shy of his 62nd birthday. He wasn't old enough for Medicare. And Medicare is essentially what covers a lot of what he needed in order to go down the path of being put on or getting the infusions of Leqembi. It was a difficult path, but it was worth fighting for.
I knew I couldn't afford round-the-clock in-home care. It's expensive. It's like, I think I was paying $37 an hour. I knew I was gonna probably have to place her. Through Alzheimer's, I learned of a woman who runs an organization here called Senior Living Options of the Desert. And she interviewed me, learned kind of what was going on and what I was looking for, and she helped me find a place. It wasn't that difficult to decide to place her because I felt like I had no choice. It was harder after I placed her. I'm always thinking about, well, how's she doing? I can't see her anymore. I'm not with her all the time. There's part of it that I suppose it must be guilt. She's now, living in a home like that. It's beautiful. I mean, they take really good care of her and she's happy there most of the time, but, it doesn't seem fair, does it? I mean, it doesn't seem fair for one spouse to be, able to do things and live their life more or less normally while the other one's, living in a care facility.
Yeah, it must be so hard to reconcile all those emotions of
it is.
grief and then guilt and then devastation and then, how do you reconcile that?
I'm part of a support group through Alzheimer's. That's helpful. I got therapy for about 3 months during the summer. For me, it's keeping busy is really important. Well, I do my volunteer work, and I ride my bike, and I hike.
We had worked our entire lives to build a retirement. When this all started happening, it was very clear to me that it was going to be different. Before, we had always talked about, we're going to do this, we're going to travel here, we've got a camper out on the, in the driveway, and that was going to be, taking it for a month across the United States, whatever. And it was just that the curtain dropped, and I couldn't see beyond what I needed to do to get him what he needed with doctors and tests and, doing all the hoops and things. And we've now been into his diagnosis 2 years, and I finally feel like the curtain is starting to lift. I'm in like hyper mode to have him do everything that he would want to do. You want to go on a trip? Great. And because I'm still working, it's like, what friend are you going to take? What friend are you going to do this with? A friend of his called him and said, do you want to go to Florida and hang out and visit with friends? And he's like, yeah, I'll go. So he left, and our son's singing in Europe. And within days, I had him a plane ticket, and his friend, George, is going to go with him. And so, whatever I can line up for him to do, and if I can do it with him, even better. If our kids can do it with him, that's fantastic too. I just want to fill his memory with as many things as possible.
Chris Sands.
Even when she was still living here and we were still pretty happy, still very happy, really, I knew I had lost her. I mean, it's just a slow, slowly she fades away. And I've been grieving for a long time. It doesn't really stop,
Phil describes Alzheimer's as losing the love of his life slowly while she is still here. He's grieving that loss every day, but he also holds on to gratitude because Patty is safe and he can visit her often at the care center.
The visit is wonderful, even though it's a little bit hard to, we enjoy being together. She doesn't remember our history, but she loves that guy that shows up.
What brings you joy nowadays?
Oh, my various activities. I love the volunteering. That really helps.
What has Alzheimer's Coachella Valley given you?
Alzheimer's Coachella Valley has given me knowledge through their educational programs, given me support through the various support groups, given me friendship through all the people we have met that are traveling the same journey we've been traveling.
We also are lucky enough to have an ACV, which is Alzheimer Coachella Valley. They are excellent, they are growing, and they are hands-on, meaning that they really educate each family. They have support groups for them, they have activities, and many more. So these are the places that do the most of the work. Unfortunately, I have to say that we doctors don't do much.
I know it's very important to Desert Oasis Healthcare to serve people in the community, not just directly through its physicians such as yourself, but even indirectly by supporting the organizations that you just said serve as resources for them, right? So Alzheimer's Coachella Valley, for example, as you know, DOHC donates a lot of money to this organization, which I know in turn, as you said, is just a lifeline for so many loved ones. How important is ACV and Club Journey, all the programs it offers for the loved one?
It's very important because this group, actually they do my job for me. Doctors are very busy. They do not have enough time to really get a good history from this patient and understand who he or she is. But these ladies at ACV, so far they're all ladies, they actually take a good history, they document all that, they do slums, which is a test that we do to get basically a baseline, an idea of how bad things are. In and of itself, it may not mean anything, but when you first establish the dementia, then this is very helpful.
This isn't your choice. You have to do what's best for your spouse, and you have to do what's best for you. Unfortunately, you can't change the circumstances. You know, the disease is there. The disease is going to progress. Value every minute you have, you know. Do everything you can to maximize that time, because it's going to slip away from you.
I hold the photo, you hold the light. Somehow we are still here tonight. So I will love you in the slow goodbye, in the quiet hours, in the reasons why. When the names fall away and the story bends, I will stay your constant, I will stay your friend.
We have literally played out every vow that we took when we got married.
Tell me them.
For better, for worse, for richer, for poor, and in sickness and in health. Yep, I am. And he just keeps filling memories for me. So, and our boys, and we'll keep the memories alive. But we still have hope.
Rich man, poor man, beggar man, thief, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. We are bound for. Boom, 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 boom. Goodbye, my Coney Island baby. Farewell, my own true love, my honey. I'm gonna go away and leave you. Never see you any, never gonna see you any. I'm gonna sail upon that ferry boat, never to return again. So goodbye, farewell.